The goal of an NBA superstar is to be able to win a championship during his prime and cement his legacy as one of the greatest players of all time. But that wasn't the case for Carmelo Anthony. Melo has expressed regret with his career decisions he made that hindered his chance at winning a ring.
But you wanted to stay in New York even when it was clear they were not going to be a part of the championship equation.
Right, I was naive. I believed in them so much.
Melo was one of the greatest scorers in the history of the game. There's no move he couldn't do or shot he didn't like. When he wanted to score, he could score.
Throws a dagger from outside and a timeout called by the Pelicans.
Many wonder how a 10-time All-Star, a 6-time All-NBA, and a guy who could give you 25 to 30 points a night couldn't come close to winning a championship. We'll go over this and more today. But before we get into it, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. And check the link in the description to get fresh NBA gear with our partners at Mitchell & Ness. Thank you for watching one of the best new basketball channels on YouTube, Swish Archives. Melo recently received a lot of criticism for his take on preferring an Olympic gold medal rather than a championship ring.
3 gold medals, 4 medals, for me, is bigger than the NBA championship.
This had fans wondering if Melo only made that statement because he never won a championship. Well, to understand Melo's controversial career and why many blame him for his shortcomings, we have to rewind a bit. It's 2003, and Syracuse is on a roll to the NCAA championship game. A freshman named Carmelo Anthony just dropped 33 points, a record for any newcomer in the NCAA tournament. Carmelo Anthony was unstoppable on his way to the 2003 national championship, becoming the tournament's most outstanding player after putting Syracuse on his back. He was a winner, and it looked like the sky was the limit for one of the greatest one-and-done players in collegiate basketball history. In fact, if it wasn't for LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony would have probably been the #1 overall pick in the 2003 draft. But he got chosen third when the Detroit Pistons gambled on Darko Milicic. But Melo and the Denver Nuggets were a hand-in-glove perfect fit because the Nuggets were looking for a young and charismatic player capable of carrying the franchise into the future. He led all rookies in scoring, averaging 21 points while leading the Nuggets to the playoffs as the team's best player at barely 20 years old. Life seemed to be going great for the Nuggets and their new franchise player, especially with Melo leading the team to the playoffs year after year. Before 2003, the team missed 8 straight playoffs. In just his third season, he was already putting up 27 points and making the All-NBA third team. The first thing that stood out about him early on was his scoring ability. In contrast to his fellow 2003 draft classmen, LeBron James and Dwayne Wade, who were more about their athleticism, Melo already had a refined offensive package that only got better. He could score jumpers off the dribble, get to the basket to score over tough defense, hit three-pointers from the perimeter, and post up smaller defenders. Melo hit his personal peak as a scorer during the 2006-2007 season when he averaged a career-high 28.9 points during an era that had tougher defenses. Carmelo Anthony's success continued in 2009 when he and Chauncey Billups led the Denver Nuggets to the Western Conference Finals against Kobe Bryant and the Lakers. It was a duel between the two best scorers in the NBA at that time, and the matchup looked personal between the two stars, who were seemingly one-upping one another. The series ended in the Lakers' favor despite Melo averaging 27.5 points in 6 games. And that was the closest he ever got to the NBA Finals. At the end of the 2009-2010 season, where Melo had great stats once more but couldn't get out of the first round, one of the most interesting things in basketball history happened. LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh, 3 of the best players in Anthony's draft class, were all free agents. The interesting part about this was that it was seemingly a 3-year plan in the making. With the trio of players familiar with one another because of their stints with USA Basketball, they all signed 3-year extensions after their rookie contracts expired. LeBron supposedly urged Wade and Bosh to sign to only 3 years as opposed to the 5-year max they could have signed. On the other hand, Melo signed a 5-year extension in 2006 because there was more money on the table for him. So, James, Wade, and Bosh all became free agents together, seemingly planning ahead of time that they wanted to play together. And the perfect destination was the Miami Heat, the only franchise that had enough salary space to accommodate 3 max contracts. Meanwhile, Melo was still in Denver, seemingly unhappy with his situation there. In 2010, Melo reportedly refused to sign a contract extension with the Nuggets, as there were reports that said he was demanding a trade. His preferred destination was New York, where there were more business and endorsement opportunities. While he couldn't force his way out of the Nuggets in 2010, the team finally traded him on the trade deadline in 2011, giving him what he wanted. Carmelo Anthony was now a Knick, and it was clear that the deciding factor was the money that he could potentially earn in New York. Things were supposed to go well for Melo and the Knicks. In the previous free agency market, New York acquired Amari Stoudemire. With Anthony joining the team, the Knicks were supposed to be serious contenders with 2 front court players capable of lighting up the scoreboard. The only problem was that the Knicks didn't have enough pieces surrounding their 2 stars. When Stoudemire got injured, the problems only piled up because the team didn't have another player who could carry the offensive load. This was when another ugly truth about Melo came out. Another early mistake Melo made was when he was set to become a free agent at the end of the 2011 season. He could have waited a few months and then signed with the Knicks as a free agent. Instead, he wanted to get to New York City earlier, forcing the Knicks to gut the team and trade a lot of useful pieces, including Gallinari and Wilson Chandler. Those guys aren't star players, but they've proven throughout their careers that they could put up solid numbers. Also, Melo would have left a lot of money on the table if he went there as a free agent. By wanting more money, he ruined the Knicks' chance of surrounding him with more talent. Despite the criticisms, Melo impressed everyone in the 2012-2013 season. He led the league in scoring for the first and only time in his career, averaging 28.7 points. The Knicks weren't bad either, winning 54 games by surrounding Anthony with capable complementary pieces like Tyson Chandler, J.R. Smith, Raymond Felton, and Jason Kidd, but they lost in the second round against the Paul George-led Pacers. He ended that season 3rd in the MVP voting and was the only reason why LeBron James didn't become the first unanimous MVP in league history. He made the All-NBA second team as well. Things never looked good for Melo after that. The Knicks struggled a season later, even though Anthony had ridiculous stats. He broke the Madison Square Garden record by scoring 62 points on January 24, 2014 against the Charlotte Bobcats. It soon became a common theme for Melo to put up great numbers as a scorer while his team was struggling, but it came at a cost. Unlike some of the best scorers in the league, Anthony was a black hole. He needed the ball in his hands to create shots off the dribble or his patented jab step instead of spotting up or cutting to the basket. And when he got the ball in his hands, he wasn't going to pass it. But that didn't seem to matter to him as long as he was making money. The ultimate sign that dollars were more important to him than anything in the world came in 2014 when he became a free agent. That year, LeBron, Wade, and Bosh all opted out of their contracts with Miami Heat in the hopes of taking pay cuts and staying together longer. And it looked like Miami had a good shot of winning more titles if they could somehow land Melo, who was also a free agent. This was the most realistic time for him to play with LeBron because that opportunity didn't happen in 2010. Meanwhile, there were also other teams interested in him, including the Houston Rockets and the Chicago Bulls, who also had good chances of winning a title. The Rockets had an unstoppable James Harden, and the Bulls had a solid core, even if they were having problems with Derrick Rose's injuries. But the Knicks offered him a 5-year, $129 million deal. Any other team willing to sign him could only offer him around $100 million. So it became a debate between taking more money or going to a team that could give him a chance at a ring. Of course, Melo chose the money. He signed with the Knicks on a 5-year deal, but on a discounted rate of $5 million less than the max offer so that the team can use the rest of the money to surround him with role players. As you might expect, $5 million isn't exactly enough to form a contender around an aging player who has yet to prove himself as a winner. Well, New York had losing records the next 3 seasons, winning only a total of 80 games during that span. Melo underperformed in those 3 seasons, failing to put up his usual high-scoring numbers and struggling with his efficiency. 3 years after signing Melo to that ridiculous contract, the Knicks realized their mistake, especially after their then team president, Phil Jackson, clashed with him a few times. They traded him to the Oklahoma City Thunder. ending Melo's questionable 7-season run. In those 7 years, the Knicks only won 1 playoff series. The trade to OKC marked the beginning of the end for Melo's career. While he was playing with Russell Westbrook and Paul George in OKC, he couldn't find his place on that team, often clinging to his old style of isolating a defender on the wing and doing jab steps before going up for a contested and inefficient mid-range shot. When the Thunder asked him to become more of a spot-up shooter, he refused to change his game, and he never took care of his body enough to stay effective deep into his 30s. A season later, the Rockets learned the hard way that Melo was a distraction they needed to get rid of. He couldn't coexist with James Harden and Chris Paul because of his isolation-heavy style and lack of defense. Melo only played 10 games for the Rockets, who went on to play better after parting ways with the former superstar. At 35 years old, Melo had resurgent seasons with the Portland Trail Blazers from 2019 to 2021 because he was allowed to be himself on a decent team that didn't put too much pressure on his shoulders. But he was a clear shell of his former self. He averaged 15.4 points during the 2019-2020 season before becoming a bench player, averaging 13 points a season later. Then, as a free agent in 2021, he finally played with LeBron James for the first time in his career. But it was already 10 years too late because he was a washed-up former star who was only worth the minimum contract when he moved to LA. The Lakers were supposed to be a super team with LeBron, Anthony Davis, Russell Westbrook, and Dwight Howard. Instead, this team was too old and too injured to make some noise. The Lakers finished 11th in the West and couldn't make the playoffs. Meanwhile, as Melo's one-year deal ended in 2022, he couldn't find a team willing to take him in. The former superstar retired in 2023. No farewell tours or send-offs. He quietly disappeared into obscurity as a former star who couldn't win when it mattered most and wasn't willing to sacrifice the money and his playing style. Melo recently told Paul George that before the Big Three in Miami formed, him and LeBron were trying to team up.
It was supposed to be Bosh and Wade, and then me and Bron, like going somewhere. We just couldn't find out where. We wanted it to be New York. You know what I'm saying? Somewhere. Or Chicago. Chicago was in the fold.
He also opened up about that in 2014, he didn't sign with the Miami Heat because he wasn't willing to play as the third and fourth option.
Imagine me at 23 years old, 24 years old, being the fourth option on the team.
In hindsight, Anthony may have had the right idea of choosing to follow his own path to greatness instead of walking the same road that LeBron and Wade paved. The problem, however, is that the road he walked was one littered with dollar bills instead of one that led him to a championship run. So what do you think? Do you think Melo made smart career decisions? Do you think he should have taken less money for a better chance at winning? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Check out the link in the description for fresh NBA gear at Mitchell & Ness. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.